Well, good afternoon. My mama always told me you can tell what kind of a crowd you're standing in front of by the way they greet friends or by the way they greet strangers when they greet you. So let's try that again. Good afternoon. Now that's more like it. You all do my mama proud. Jim, thank you for that all too kind and over generous introduction. At USAction, we say there are three kinds of people. People who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and then there are people that don't know what's happening. I can't think of any place else in the world I would rather be on a Saturday afternoon than right here in Albany, the people's capital of New York, in a room full of aggressive progressives. People who are not just content. People who are not just content to spectate or speculate or pontificate or postulate about life, but people who are active participants in the movement for social justice. Democracy is a verb, not a noun, and I truly believe because you all are gathered here this weekend, our country will be more secure, our economy will be stronger, and our nation's citizens to be, and yes, even our nation's immigrants will all breathe freer because of the work that Citizen Action of New York and the activists and advocates who are gathered here this weekend have done, are doing, and most importantly, what you all are getting ready to do. And because we activists are often inundated and underappreciated and undercompensated and seldom celebrated, well, why don't y'all celebrate yourselves right now with a good big round of applause? Let Barack and Michelle and Malia and Sasha and Bo hear you all the way at the White House. What a joy, what an honor, what a treat to be standing here in this historic place, at this historic time, at this historic moment in history. There are 5 things that you cannot recover in life. A stone after it's thrown, a word after it's said, the occasion after it's missed the time, after it's gone, and a person after they die. So I'm so grateful for this time to spend with old friends and new friends and friends to be. I would not have missed this occasion for the world. We are the grateful alive. And we're going to have a good time this weekend. But as we speak our truth, let us speak it with conviction and clarity, but let us also speak it with compassion for one another. And let us not use our stones for target practice on each other. Let us save them for Goliath, our real opponents. Against them, we will need all of the rocks at our command. Let's not waste them on each other. To all of the speakers and presenters who preceded me, I want to thank you for giving our heads good information. Thank you for giving our hearts good inspiration, and thank you for giving our feet good instructions. And how about that Dr. Melissa Harris Perry? Ain't she something else? Now, I've seen her on TV. I'm thoroughly convinced after hearing her speech that she needs to have her own TV show. Having me speak at a conference like this is never a 50-50 proposition. I guarantee you that I already have received more wisdom and inspiration than I will give. So with that disclaimer, I'm going to tell you all like Britney Spears told her first 2 husbands, I won't keep you long. As we head toward our workshops, indulge me for a few minutes on my topic and my theme, the revolution will be televised after all. I'm old school, and in the 70s, we listened to a lot of socially conscious music. Now, lest we old schoolers try to place ourselves on some pedestal about socially conscious music, we also listen to Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye and Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind & Fire. So we listen to all kinds of music, but there was a young poet, singer, and musician. His name was Gil Scott-Heron. Gil Scott-Heron, he died last weekend at age 62 years old. He was known in some circles as the godfather of rap. He left an amazing body of work, dealing head-on with some of the burning social issues of our day. He sang a song about apartheid. Have you heard the word? Johannesburg. He sang a song about politics. He wrote a poem about President Gerald Ford. He called him the oatmeal man. He sang about addiction in his songs, Angel Dust and In the Bottle. Stevie Wonder once said that Gil Scott-Heron says things that many of us are afraid to say. One of my proudest moments as the president of the Black Student Union at the University of Iowa was getting Gil Scott-Heron to come to the campus and perform. And what will probably go down as his best-known poem was his work, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It was a poem about how the struggle of an oppressed people fighting for freedom could never be sanitized enough to be seen on commercial TV. But that was in the 70s, and our television choices were limited. It was before cable, most people watched mostly 3 major networks. But with the advent of cable and the event of 24-hour cable news, not only are our freedom struggles being seen, but freedom-loving people all over the world are being beamed into our living rooms. Arab winter has turned into Arab spring and is spilling over into Arab summer. This is a revolutionary wave of demonstrations and protests. Revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia, civil war in Libya, civil uprisings in Bahrain and Syria, major protests in Algeria and Jordan, Morocco and Oman, protests in Kuwait and Lebanon and Mauritania and Saudi Arabia and Sudan. Last night, upstairs in my hotel room, I watched CNN and watched the government of Yemen heading for a civil war. So it seems that the revolution will be televised after all. People are fed up with human rights violations and corruption and unemployment and poverty, and they are taking to the streets with strikes and demonstrations and marches and civil disobedience and rallies. But also these modern-day revolutionaries are using social media to communicate and raise awareness of their conditions. And thus, not only will the revolution be televised, it will also be Facebooked and tweeted and YouTubed as well. We've gone from Paul Revere on a horse in this country to the printing press, to radio, to TV, and now social media. And so our challenge, progressives, is how we can use this socially neutral technology to advance our fights for racial and social and economic justice. To be honest with you, we've actually been doing a pretty good job against the odds. When President Bush tried to use his bully pulpit right after his reelection to privatize Social Security, USAction nationally and Citizen Action in New York organized a big coalition and took the fight to targeted districts, President Bush's first major defeat, and set the stage for the election of President Barack Obama. When the teabaggers and the insurance industry and the corporations tried to stop health care reform, USAction, Citizen Action of New York, Healthcare for America out-organized and out-lobbied them and passed into law the Affordable Health Care Act. Let me say a quick word about the Affordable Health Care Act before I continue my talk. It was over a year ago, a little over a year ago, that President Obama signed the Affordable Health Care Act, finally affirming that high-quality, affordable health care will be a right guaranteed to all in this country. And despite the misinformation, the disinformation, the outright falsehoods, deception, dishonesty, fabrications, mendacity, and outright lies put out by the opponents of the Affordable Health Care Act, let me give you some news about it. Because of the Affordable Care Act, young people can stay on their parents' coverages until they turn 26 years old. Ain't that good news? Insurance companies can't deny children coverage for pre-existing conditions. Ain't that good news? Insurance companies can't cancel coverage because a person has been treated in the past. Ain't that good news? So small businesses can get tax credits to help pay for their coverage. Ain't that good news? Seniors are now eligible for preventative care. Ain't that good news? And seniors who fall into prescription drug donut hole, that little deductible which hits them in the middle of their policy, this deductible will shrink every year until it disappears completely. Ain't that good news? Man, ain't that news? Wait. There's more. In 2014, in the middle of President Obama's second term, insurance companies won't be able to deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. Now, ain't that something to celebrate? Insurance companies won't be able to place any yearly lifetime limits on your coverage. Now, ain't that something to celebrate? People who don't get health coverage at work can buy it on the open market, and the price will be based on their income, so it'll be affordable. In other words, people will no longer go bankrupt if they have a major illness. Ain't that something to celebrate? And everybody in America, the uninsured, the underinsured, the anxiously insured, will get the same choices for health coverage as every member of Congress has. The Affordable Health Care Act is a major advance toward the cause of human justice. It establishes the basic moral concept that health quality, high quality, affordable health care is a human right for all and not just a privilege for some. The United States have finally joined every other industrialized country and recognized this, and our opponents understand this. They know that this is the biggest shift of wealth from the insurance companies and other corporations directly to the people, the biggest shift of wealth in 40 years. My sisters and brothers, this is not just about scoring political points. This should be bigger than partisan politics. This is part of a broader fight. This fight defines who we are as a nation. And whether we reduce this battle to drop dead, I won't pay for your health care, you get yours, I got mine, or whether we are going to reaffirm the basic American ideal that yes, we are responsible for ourselves, but we also are responsible for each other. I am my sister's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. We all do better when we all do better. Is the Affordable Health Care Act a perfect piece of legislation? Of course not. Senator Dick Durbin reminded us that when Social Security was first enacted, it didn't even cover all seniors. It had to be expanded and built upon to cover not only seniors, but widows, widowers, their children, and the disabled. When Medicare was first signed into law, it didn't cover all seniors. It had to be built on and expanded, not only to cover the seniors, but the disabled as well. The Affordable Health Care Act is not a dream house, but it's a damn good starter house. It's got a solid foundation. It's got a sturdy roof. It's got room to grow. And so today I'm here to declare that the Affordable Health Care Act will not be repealed, it will not be replaced, it will not be repudiated, it will be implemented, it will be broadened, and it will be strengthened. And make no mistake about it, make no mistake about it, the passage of the Affordable Health Care Act is landmark legislation and transforms the political landscape. After 100 years of trying, this president did what Theodore Roosevelt couldn't do, Taft wouldn't do, Wilson didn't do, Harding couldn't do, Hoover didn't even try to do. Franklin Roosevelt got us Social Security and a New Deal, but didn't get us there. Truman got us a fair deal, but he didn't get us there either. Eisenhower couldn't do it. Kennedy didn't live to do it. Johnson took a big step with Medicare and Medicaid, but fell short. Nixon couldn't do it. Ford couldn't do it. Carter couldn't do it. Reagan didn't even try to do it. Bush 1 couldn't do it. Clinton tried and got us a children's health insurance plan, but came up short. Bush 2 wouldn't do it, but Barack Obama, the second president of the 21st century, did what presidents have been trying to do for 100 years. So happy birthday. Happy birthday, Affordable Health Care Act. May your days be long and your adversities few. The good news is that there are more Americans who share our values than not. So when we compromise on our agenda, though, here's the challenge. No public option for health care. I want to defend our agenda, running away from health care reform. We deflate our base of support, and we get teabagged and corporate-backed Koch brothers, Koch brothers, whatever. Let's not make them bigger than they are. We saw them as giants, and they saw us as grasshoppers, and so we saw ourselves as such. Those are two dudes with a lot of money. Only. Remind me of a story that Justin Dart told me one time. He said, Justin Dart, the late disability rights activist, some of y'all might know, right as we were forming USAction, we met with him. We met with all the progressives, as many progressives as we could, to try to shape our organization, and we met with him. And his major cause was health care reform, and he said, wow, I see an organization like yours right in the forefront of delivering health care reform, something I've been fighting on. I think he was with the Reagan administration. He was a disability rights person with the Reagan administration. He said, something I've been fighting on all my life. And I see you all as being the ones who can deliver it. And Jeff Blum, who's our executive director, who's a great guy, he started thinking about the challenges, though. He said, yeah, but the insurance industry and the Med Society, all those people, this was 1999, they have a lot of money. And I'll never forget what Justin Dart told me. And he told us. He looked at us and he said, they need a lot of money. Because the truth has a lot of power. And so we're going to take our truth against their money. I'll put our truth, progressive movement, against the Cook brothers' money any day. And we will beat them, and we will deserve to win, and the people win every time. The good news is that when their agenda is laid bare, our people come out. However, we cannot leave these Democrats to their own devices. In addition to the progressive forces like us pushing on the outside to strengthen our progressive champions like Eric Schneiderman and Paul Tonko and Maurice Hinchley and Barbara Smith and Leah Webb on the inside, we also have some Republicans. Give them a hand. Yeah, give them a hand. They here. Some of them are here. We also have some Republicans who are helping us organize our forces as well. From Wisconsin, we got a twofer. We got Congressman Paul Ryan and Governor Scott Walker. And in New York, we must give special appreciation to candidate Jane Corwin, who stood up for millionaires and billionaires and supported Paul Ryan's plan to voucherize Medicare and end the single-payer health care system for seniors and disability in this country. And now, because of her efforts, they gave us Democratic Congresswoman Kathy Hochul in an overwhelming Republican district. And I watched this drama unfold in my living room in Chicago, in my hotel room in Springfield. The revolution will be televised after all. And so our challenge today is, how do we use this media, particularly television, to get our message for racial and social and economic justice out? Actually, one of the earlier televised revolutions was the civil rights movement. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King used the power of civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance as weapons to inspire the nation and rise up against American apartheid. Now, one of the most celebrated and famous speeches in America is a speech that was given by the late Dr. Martin Luther King at the March on Washington in 1963. People so identified King with the I Have a Dream speech that some people merely see him as some casual, inspirational dreamer. And you know, that becomes real easy to understand if you're younger than 43. Everybody in this room who is younger than 43, stand up. Younger than 43. 43 or younger. This is the future of our movement. Give these young people a great big round of applause. Don't tell me we serve a dying movement. Our movement is alive. Thank you all. Thanks for standing. Thanks for standing. You may be seated. I did that to make a point. The only thing that those people that stand know about Dr. Martin Luther King is what they've seen, what they've heard on TV or history books, what they read. I was fortunate enough to be around 43 years ago and before. It was 43 years ago in April when Dr. King was gunned down as he stood on the Memphis balcony. By the way, King didn't live to be 40. He was gunned down at age 39. But as we reflect and commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, let us remember that he not only inspired us, he marched for his beliefs, he sat in for his beliefs. In Alabama, he went to jail for his beliefs. In Chicago, he was hit in the head with a brick for his beliefs. And in Memphis, on a balcony, he was gunned down because of what he believed in. And I'm merely pointing out that Dr. King was not just some idealistic dreamer. He was a fighter who fought to make his dreams a reality. He was a gallant fighter for civil rights, for we all know that there will not be a Civil Rights Act or a Voting Rights Act without his leadership. But I'm going to tell you that the very last fight that the late Dr. Martin Luther King fought was the fight to unionize garbage workers in Memphis. The reason he was in Memphis was to support underpaid city garbage workers who determined that the city recognized their right to join a union. You see, Dr. Martin Luther King knew that we could not have racial justice without economic justice. He knew that you could not have civil rights without labor rights. Those garbage workers worked hard for low pay, dangerous working conditions, abusive white supervisors. They had jobs, they didn't have dignity. They had garbage workers carried a sign, and I know Melissa Harris Perry told us to remember that there was people who had signs that said, "I am a woman too." That's absolutely right. But those signs, since all the garbage workers were men, they had signs that said, all the garbage workers were men, they had signs that said, "I am a man." And that's what this struggle is about. Workers are not commodities. Workers are not cogs in a machine. Workers are not poker chip that you use for your own cynical political end. Workers are human beings, and to try to deny people a voice in workplace decisions, to deprive a man or woman of a decent standard of living, is like saying to that man or woman that you have no right to exist. We must fight for dignity and justice for all workers, whether they're union or not. Now, I'm a firm believer in anti-poverty programs, but one of the most successful anti-poverty programs in this country has been the labor union movement. It has lifted more Americans from poverty to the middle class than any other anti-poverty program. It has lifted more African Americans and people of color from poverty to the middle class than any affirmative action program. Study of tax and budget accountability. African American and Latino union members have weekly wages that are 23% higher than their non-union counterparts. Women union members earn 26% more than women who are not union. But this story is not just about statistics or numbers on a page. Let me close with the story of an African-American man who left Tennessee to come to Chicago in the 1950s, where he met and married a woman who had come to Chicago from Alabama. They gave birth to 5 children. One child died when he was 2 days old. The father worked 2 to 3 jobs so he could provide for his wife and kids. He moved furniture. He drove a delivery truck. He drove a cab. He delivered pizzas. He very seldom spent time with his kids. He was always tired when he came home. He went to bed late. He got up early. One day, a friend told him about a job at a factory on Costner Avenue in Chicago, and he was lucky enough to get that job, and he worked hard for 8 hours every day, helping to produce one of the finest bicycles in the world, a Schwinn bicycle. And because it was a union job, he not only got a decent wage, he got health insurance benefits for himself and his family. And he began to spend more time with his family and his 4 children. And he took his family to the annual company picnic where one of his sons would always win the eating contest, whether it was the pie eating contest or any eating contest. And he gave his family a middle-class lifestyle which allowed his oldest son to be the first one in the history of his family to ever attend college. That man was my dad, and I am his oldest son. By the way, it was my brother Fred who won all the eating contests. But all 4 of us got to go to college, and the building blocks of a middle-class lifestyle, allowing a father to spend quality time with his family, giving his children opportunities that he never had, the ability to live a meaningful and fulfilling life rested squarely on the back of a strong labor union contract. I have much more to say, but I'll let Melissa Harris Perry say it for me in her next speech. Oh, he's so bad. I want to close. This is my final close. I was raised Baptist, so I close more than once. But this is my final close. They can only win if they divide us. If we unite it, we can win. So let us struggle together so that we can win together, for the revolution will be televised after all. Let's make sure that when it happens, we're ready for our close-up. Y'all ready for some good news? Jesse Jackson says, we never lost a battle that we fought. Never. Check your history. We never lost a battle that we engaged. We only lost when we didn't fight or we didn't fight long enough. So ain't that good news? Back in the 1700s, there's a story about a man from Ghana. He's a member of the Ashanti tribe. He was captured in the city of Accra. He was placed on a slave ship and headed for America. When he got to South Carolina, he was placed on an auction block in a particularly crowded market square. And he was purchased by a particularly crude slave master. And to make sure that he had total control of his slave, he had a ritual. He would make him bend down on his knees in front of them, kiss his hand, and show his allegiance. When he completed his purchase, he had the overseer bring the man to them, and the overseer pushed the man to the ground on his knees, and the slave master stuck out his hand, and the man stood up. Well, the slave master then signaled the overseer to knock him down and beat him, and with 3 slashes of a whip, whap, whap, whap. After a few moments, the man on the ground, body in pain, stood back up. People in the crowd had seen this before. They'd seen this ritual many times before. They knew he was getting ready to break now, because the slave master put his hand out for the final time, and he told the man to push him back down, and this time the overseer beat him, beat him, beat him, and beat him, and beat him, and beat him within the little itch of his life. The man, with the pain coursing through every vein in his body, slowly, painfully, but surely stood back up. Now the crowd is real nervous. They're agitated. They're like, wait, what's wrong with him? If he would just stay down and just kiss the man's hand, it would be over. He would stop being beat. And then the captain of the slave ship, he had a little insight. He said, well, you know, when we kidnapped him from Africa, he was the son of an Ashanti king. And the problem is that he doesn't think he's a slave. He still thinks he's a prince. So I just stopped by here to let you know that all of you all are sons and daughters of a king, and he wants you to stand up. So if you fall down, stand up. We all fall down, but we get back up. It's not a sin to fall down. It's a sin to wallow. So stand up. And if they knock you down, stand up. Being knocked down isn't the same as being knocked out. Don't let them count you out. Stand up. And if they lie on you, stand up. And if they try to take your job, stand up. And if they try to put you in jail, stand up. And if they try to kill you, well, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. Stand up. And when you stand up, you're not just standing up for yourselves, you're standing up for your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. And when you stand up, you're standing up for the unemployed, the underemployed, the barely employed, the anxiously employed. And when you stand up, the truth comes out. And when you stand up, coalitions get built. And when you stand up, unlikely voters show up at the polls. And when you stand up, higher wages come back with better jobs and better benefits. Yokes get destroyed, knees get unbent, backs get straighter, heads look upward. When you stand up, we stand together, stick together, and stay together. Let the record reflect that on this day, Saturday, June 4th, 2011, men and women came to a hotel in Albany, New York to report for duty, suit up for the battle of justice, and bent the moral arc of the universe toward justice and jobs for all. We are one nation working together. Be strong, be of good courage, keep the faith, mantenga la fe, si se puede.